What's up, everybody? Hello. And welcome to the Homewrecker podcast, where we wreck and shatter conventional wisdom and ways of thinking by bringing alternative viewpoints to light. I'm the Golden Greek, Alex Arion, joined as always by my beautiful, lovely, gorgeous wife, the lovely Monique. Monique, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. You love those long pauses, like Monique.
Long pause. It's not even a second.
It feels
long
like
pause.
a long pause. I'm like, do I
Good
speak?
Lord.
Oh, I'm going to wait. Yes, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful.
Excellent.
Fantastic as always.
Fabulous.
Yes, it is. It is rather fabulous.
Just like you.
Thank you. So what is going on with you? What is new with you, my lady?
We got baby chicks.
Yeah, we did.
Adding to our flock. I don't know if you're going to hear them chirping in the background.
If you hear chirping in the background, I don't know if it's coming in through the mics or not.
I don't know, but they are adorable.
Yes.
But yeah, so we got baby chicks, so that's new.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
More eggs.
Exactly.
In a few months, hopefully.
Yep. Well, probably
whatever.
Midsummer, but yeah, got chicks. Not too much going on, but I'll just kind of get our housekeeping out of the way.
Do it.
Yeah. If you like what you hear and you want to show your support, go to Buy Me a Coffee, Homewrecker podcast, and you can donate. And we have bonus stuff out there that you can listen to. So go to Buy Me a Coffee, Homewrecker podcast. Check out some stuff that hasn't been released. You might really enjoy it. And if you're interested in hypnotherapy, you can schedule a free 20-minute consult with me by going to understandingshypnosis.com. Or if you're looking for something not one-on-one, but something you can do on your own, I do have digital downloads available as well. There's a lot of options, and hopefully there's something that you'll enjoy doing at a fraction of the cost of a one-on-one price. If you're interested in a tarot reading, organite, candles, crystals, go to my website, tarotbymonique.com. And you, my dear, anything you want to pitch?
Yeah. Let's pitch to the show. Let's
All
get
right,
this
let's
show on
do
the
it.
road. Right now, let's go. We are talking about Alternative 3.
I wonder how many people listening actually know what Alternative 3 is.
Well, if you don't know, you're going to find out.
Alternative 3 was a mockumentary film for television that aired on June 19th, 1977 on the Anglia TV network. And it was broadcast throughout Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Greece, and Yugoslavia. At the end of the film, the date listed as airing was April 1st because that was when it was supposed to originally air. But due to some issues, it didn't get put out until June. The movie was created by David Ambrose and Christopher Miles, and this science fiction documentary-style film came across as something to be interpreted as fact. It opens with Tim Britton as host of the Imagine show, Science Report, who focuses on 3 prominent people who have mysteriously gone missing. Dubbed the brain drain, Tim Britton explained how scientists, physicists, engineers, astronomers, and others in related fields who were deemed of great value to society were lured from their homes for higher paying jobs elsewhere. But it was during this brain drain, it seemed that there were numerous people who just seemed to vanish and never be heard from again. As Science Report investigates these strange disappearances, they stumble onto something far deeper than anything anyone could have possibly imagined. These scientists and other valuable people and their families were actually relocated to Mars. The reason discovered for this is because, as they claimed, a group of British, Soviet, and U.S. scientists and government officials realized that our Earth could not stand all of the pollution, the greenhouse effect, basically everything that was just destroying and killing the Earth. They gave examples like high heat in India that was killing many people, massive snowstorms in the U.S. with rivers freezing, and so on. And this group came up with 3 alternatives to save mankind.
What was the name of the group? The Policy Commission.
Yes, the Policy Commission. So the 3 alternatives, the first one, Alternative 1, drastically reduce the population. Alternative 2, construct vast underground shelters to house government officials and a cross-section of the population until the climate was stabilized again. Or Alternative 3, colonize Mars using the moon as a way station of sorts. So the film goes on to say that the committee chose Alternative 3, hence the name of the movie. And later in the film, they meet with a fictional Apollo astronaut, Bob Groden.
Well, he's not fictional in the show. I mean, they don't call him a fictional astronaut.
But he's not a real astronaut.
Well, yeah, obviously.
That's why I put that. Disclaimer, he's not a real astronaut. He's an actor. But in the film, he's an Apollo astronaut who claims to have accidentally stumbled onto a base of some kind while exploring the moon during his time there. Towards the end of the movie, they showed this secret encrypted film that they were able to get their hands on from 1962. And when I say encrypted, I mean when you play it, it just shows up as what they call, I think, satellite transmissions, and you need a special code to be able to watch the film on it. So they're able to get the code, they get access to it, and it's film showing a landing on Mars. And as this camera and a shuttle lands on Mars, they see some life form moving underground. And as that's happening, you hear an astronaut exclaiming that they found life on Mars.
So that's the finish of the movie.
Well,
so you've just given a synopsis of the movie.
Yeah. So that's a synopsis of the movie. And what had happened was so many people thought this was a real movie.
And you forgot the most important part.
What?
At the very end of the movie. The credits.
Oh, yeah. And it had credits at the end.
Credits roll after this, ladies and gentlemen. Mm-hmm. Credits with a cast.
Yep. Cast and crew.
Cast and crew.
Cast.
All listed.
Actors.
The writers, or excuse me, the people who devised it, because it says devised by.
Yes.
David Ambrose and Christopher Miles. Like it's obviously a movie. It's a work of fiction. It's obvious.
But with this, so many people thought it was real. And
let's get into what happened though, because when this aired, and it only aired one time in Great Britain, it caused quite a panic.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into that.
I just want to say why it was so believable at that time, because there were a few reasons. The first, Tim Britton, who was the host of Science Report in the film, he was a real anchor man. So that gave some validity for people to think, could this be real?
But I mean, okay, fair enough. Sure. Go ahead. Continue. I'll speak on it after.
Second, the creators at Anglia TV presented this film as a real documentary. They did that on purpose. The creators, from what allegedly came out later, they said they wanted to expose how much the media manipulates people. And it's a perfect example, because they said, hey, can you present it as a documentary? We want people thinking it's real. And Anglia TV's like, yeah, sure. Proving their point, how media can manipulate what people think. The other thing to keep in mind was back then, back in the 70s, there was no internet, no IMDb or anything for the general public to deeply research on this. So yeah, today you look stuff up online, but back then you couldn't really do that. To do research took a lot more work than most people probably knew how to do. So many people even claim that the fictional show Science Report was a real show.
Which, again, this is what this was presented as, an episode of Science Report, which was not a show. That was the only Science Report was Alternative 3. That was the only one that ever aired. That's the only one that was ever done. But people were thinking that because of the way it was presented, that it was real.
Mm-hmm. And even today, people talk about Science Report like it's a real show. Alex and I even question, we're like, is it possible there was really a Science Report show? And maybe that's why there's confusion. We looked, we dug, we researched. We could not find anything showing proof that Science Report was a real show.
Which it wasn't. It was not a real show. So we looked everywhere, like you said. We did a lot of digging, a lot of a lot of different places we went. You went on Anglia TV's website. There's never been a show called Science Report. I went and looked at a bunch of different places, and a lot of the different sites that talk about Alternative 3, the film, say that it was a legitimate it came from a legitimate TV show called Science Report. Everybody ran with this.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody runs with this. So much so that I found a website called thetvdb.com, which essentially is like IMDb, but for TV shows. And even there, they listed Science Report as a legitimate show, but the only episode was Alternative 3. Yeah. So even that, the information bled over to a legitimate website like that keeps track of these things. So I can see where people would think that something like this is real, or that it was real.
And that's the thing. So back then, okay, I get it, but I feel like people also, they need to read between the lines, because they took
You're giving people too much credit.
They took stuff that was real in a sense that I could see added some form of credibility to what they're saying. But you have to look at what's going on. And especially, I think at the end, the date was April 1st. And I think part of what made it difficult was it didn't get to air on April 1st. If it aired on April 1st, I think that it was more of a April Fool's. Yeah, this isn't real.
But they don't tell you April Fool's.
But they don't. But they say April 1st, 1977 at the end of the movie of like the date it was supposed to air. But they have credits at the end. If it's a real documentary, they didn't say it was reenactments using actors as reenactments. They had credits.
Now, think about that, too. When a show is aired, like, say, let's time travel back to 1977. Obviously, you were not even alive yet. I wasn't even born yet when this aired, actually. So let's just think about back then, traditionally, what would people do? Like, television was event viewing, right? Yeah. Because there was only so many channels, only so many programs that were on. So if you're sitting around with your family watching the telly in Great Britain, and this comes on, and they're hitting you with all this crazy stuff, and again, like some of the natural disasters and things that they're showing and talking about the weather and all the climate change and all the kind of stuff, how back then would you be able to research any of this stuff? Because again, like you said already, there was no internet. So you're sitting there and you're seeing all these images of floods and all the volcanoes, whatever they're showing, and you're getting freaked out, right? And they're talking about things that are pretty legitimately scary if put in the proper context. And they're talking to supposed astronauts. Who knew the names of the astronauts that went up in all the Apollo missions? Like, who knew everybody's name?
I don't even know all the Apollos that went up.
But I mean, even if you were alive at the time,
allegedly,
how would you remember the name of the Apollo astronauts from the 60s in 1977? Especially where they were American, right? Like, you're not going to remember them. That's all. I can see where people would overlook that and not realize that Bob Groden was not actually a real astronaut.
And it's very clever the way they did this movie.
Oh, this was very well done.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you can see where maybe the credits come up, but at the very end of the movie, they hit you with that shot of supposedly Mars and a life form, and the astronauts saying, "Well, there's life," or whatever the line was that he said. Everybody's looking at each other like, wow, can you believe that? Wow. And they're probably all just going off in their conversations as the credits are rolling. They're probably not even noticing.
Yeah. And a lot of people, I'm sure, were like, oh, that's a bunch of hogwash. But it makes you wonder, plants that seed, because the greenhouse effect was something that they talked about back in the late 70s and in the 80s. And I think even in the 90s, they talked about the greenhouse effect.
Sure.
And pollution. They're taking these things that happened and they're turning it into something more than it is. But like you said, not everyone knows. Like who really knows about what's really going on in other countries back then, unless it made national news.
Right.
Just because they didn't hear about it doesn't mean it didn't necessarily happen. And again, it's harder to do a lot of researching. And how many people are really going to go to the library and try to find periodicals for newspapers from other countries to see if it was real?
And were they even available?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows? Unless you know somebody and you call your friend in India or you call your friend in the US, hey, did this happen?
Exactly. So you could see where television, which is what the creators wanted. They wanted to show how media can easily sway and manipulate people.
And it did.
And it obviously did. It worked. I don't know that they foresaw the life that this thing would take and what it would cause. And we'll get into that after.
Well, later in 1978, a gentleman, Leslie Watkins, he wrote a book based off the mockumentary, and he added more creative embellishments to the story, per his own admission. So right there, we know it's fake.
Yeah, of course.
The story went on to say that not only were the brightest minds being recruited for Mars, but the government was also abducting lower class people to make as slaves. And Leslie Watkins, that's where he went on to name the group of scientists and government officials who decided on Alternative 3. He named them the Policy Committee.
So that was the shot callers, the they.
The
them,
they.
The them.
Yes.
They.
And I guess the book makes it even more barbaric how they're just abducting people they deem less worthy to basically wait on and cook and clean and take care of these brilliant minds on Mars. Yeah. It caused more of a stir.
So exactly. It caused so much of a stir that the House of Lords, there was a gentleman, I forget the guy's name, but he was badgering Leslie Watkins about this story, even though it's fiction, and it was presented as such. It's not like it was, this is a factual book. No, none of that was done. It was a continuation of the fictional television show that was aired. And he was telling this guy that from the House of Lords, like, no, it's fiction. Don't go. You're going to make a fool of yourself presenting this information. Don't do it. And the guy was badgering about it and just wouldn't let up. And so it gets even crazier, I guess the hysteria, because Leslie Watkins, the author now, is saying that his phones, he believed that his phones were being tapped. And so he had a couple of private investigator friends, and he talked to them, let them know what was going on. And they said, yeah, your phones are being tapped, probably by a government agency because you got too close to the truth. So now this guy's getting paranoid, thinking, oh, geez, I'm sitting there. I wrote a work of fiction. And obviously, if people think that this is true or whatever, like who knows? So he's getting paranoid now. He eventually calms down, comes to his senses, figures out, whatever. It's just hysteria. People, but essentially it turned into a real life War of the Worlds. Like War of the Worlds back in when Orson Welles did the radio program and caused a mass hysteria. And I mean, people were hearing the reports of the alien invaders and everything, and they're thinking it's real on the radio back in when Orson Welles did that broadcast. And now you've got the people that saw this show the one time, and just imagine now, think of the hysteria that gets caused. People see this show, maybe they miss the credits, whatever, who knows? But kids are going to school and talking to other kids. People are going to work and talking to their coworkers. And now, again, you get the game of telephone going, right? And people that maybe missed the show are hearing about it word of mouth from other people. You're going to the pub or the bar, and you're sitting at the bar, and people are talking about it. You didn't see it, so you're going and you're wondering, oh, what's this about? And so think about how easy it is for a hysteria or for something like this, a story like this, to take on a life of its own and to grow exponentially.
Especially when a year later, a book comes out with even more information.
Exactly. And so now this is where we see this book has influenced so much of current conspiracy culture and conspiracy theories, things that I myself, when I was younger, would look into that interested me and stuff. And Alternative 3 was something that I'd never seen the film. I'd never seen the documentary, but I always heard about it. I never read the book or anything like that, but I'd always heard about it. I didn't buy the book till 2020. And even then, I just kind of briefly, like I flipped through a couple of pages and was like, this is just too, like, it just didn't seem. Yeah, and it has like an introduction and everything where the guy says it's fiction. He tells you right there it's fiction. So the fact that so many people read this and thought, oh, it's real. They're saying it's fiction, but it's really real. This is just their way of covering it up and getting the information out there. It's like, what?
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Holtz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Holtz, spelled HOTES.com.
So do we want to name names of people?
Oh, you want to talk about some of the different conspiracy theorists who believed it to be true and
or
then
at least claimed it was true.
I want to say honestly that a lot of these people, they just were so conspiracy minded because that was their thing that they got snookered by this whole thing.
Well, and Alex, and when we discussed this, we talked about how it comes down to one of two things. Either one, they wanted it to believe it was true so badly because it fit for them.
Yeah, they want to believe.
They wanted to believe it. Or two, they knew it was fake and they wanted to cash in on it. Or maybe a little bit of both.
Maybe a little of both. Who knows? But Jim Keith, popular conspiracy author, the late Jim Keith, he wrote a book about it, The Case Book for Alternative 3. So he wrote all about it and talked about it as if it was real and then proceeded to talk about all these different things that are happening and the secret space program and all that kind of stuff. So he was one. The late Milton William Cooper, the gentleman that wrote Behold the Pale Horse. He talked about the policy committee and UFOs and things like that. The policy committee, ladies and gentlemen, was a fake thing that was made up. It was
made
fake.
up by Leslie Watkins.
It was fake. And William Cooper was going out and giving lectures talking about the policy committee. Like, come on. So that right there, immediately, dude, anything you're saying, even if you have truth in there, you're talking about something fictional as if it's true, I immediately discount you. You're done. In my eyes, your credibility's shot. It's gone. Then you have people like David Wilcock and Corey Goode, who also cite Alternative 3 in a lot of their stuff. And those guys are the biggest con artists out there. And there's so much information talking about these guys and how they just snow job people and take their money. It's crazy. Corey Goode, actually, speaking of him, there's depositions of him, legal depositions of him that are available on YouTube, online. You can find them, where he admits that he made up all of his stuff.
Yeah, he goes on to claim that his work is his intellectual property, which means he made it all up, but he still wants to cash in on it.
Yeah, he's even asked point blank, like, is this real? Or he's like, it's my intellectual property. So he's not saying it's real or not real, but it's his intellectual property. So yeah, he's admitting that none of it's real. He made it up, but other people are taking his work now and cashing in. So he's pissed because people are taking his ideas and running with them, which is exactly what everybody did with Alternative 3.
And you know what's funny? It makes me think of so a few episodes back, we did the paper mill, where we discussed how there's a paper mill in India and they just write papers about these, medical and scientific studies that
peer-reviewed research
peer-reviewed-
papers.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's bullshit. It's all garbage. They just make it up, but they publish it. And it just made me think of that. It's like the paper mill. They're just like writing stuff. They're putting it out. There's no actual factual content behind it.
No. There was a gentleman, Preston, the Philadelphia experiment and the Montauk Project crew, Preston Nichols, Duncan Cameron, Stuart Swerdlow, Al Bielek. Have we done a show about the Philadelphia experiment of the Montauk Project?
We've talked about doing it, but I don't think we ever got
We've
to
never
it.
gone around to it, and I probably never gonna. Well, we might just because it's kind of a fun story, but not going to cover it as if it was true, because these guys all, again, they cite Alternative 3 in a lot of their work. Laura Eisenhower Jr., who actually is the legitimate great-granddaughter of Dwight D. Eisenhower, but she cites Alternative 3. She says she was part of a secret space program and talks about all the kind of stuff, all the stuff that Alternative 3, the book and the show, talk about, Colony on Mars, all that stuff. It's like, come on. And then there's Andrew Basiago, who also cites Alternative 3, and this guy's awesome. He's got a great story. He claims that he was part of a Project Pegasus, which was essentially time travel, and that he was in the time travel Project Pegasus with Barack Obama, but he doesn't call him that. He calls him Barry because that's how he knew him. It's insane. The characters and the stories these people come up with. It's something else. Randy Kramer's another one who claims he was part of that he's a super secret soldier. What was it?
Yeah,
a super soldier.
He was like some super soldier, and then somebody like called him out like for like a boxing match.
Yes, Stephen Cambion of Truth Seekers. He's got a YouTube channel that's hilarious because he finds all these people. He calls them wackadoos, and his stuff is funny. If you want to just see all this stuff and all these people called out on their nonsense, watch his YouTube stuff. His stuff is great. But yeah, he called them out and challenged them to a boxing match, and yeah, obviously the guy, it didn't happen. But yeah, I mean, just
even
nonsense.
though Randy was all like, "Yeah, I'll destroy him.
I'll destroy
I'm a super
him.
soldier."
Anyway,
good for you, man.
So all these people who are, if you've ever listened to Art Bell, you know most of these names. You've heard most of these people do interviews. That's where I heard of most of these folks at first. And like I said, I was a big Art Bell fan, and I would follow up on a lot of these people. I'd buy their books. I have a lot of books by a lot of these people. Mm-hmm. I've watched their presentations online. I've got DVDs. Oh man, I'll tell you, I bought into a lot of this stuff. I didn't know what was real, what was fake, but I was willing to give it time. I was willing to be an audience to it. Mm-hmm. And like after finding out that so many of these people were citing this fictional thing as a basis for a lot of their story, it's like, okay.
You're discredited.
You're discredited right off the bat. Like I don't. They could be completely honest with most of their stuff, but the fact that they're using this as a basis for it, it's like, no, you're not. You're full of it.
And I want to throw out there, we watched an excellent documentary by Mary Louise Church called Alternative 3, How a Hoax Documentary Created a Conspiracy Cult. And we highly recommend this to if this interests you. Check it out if you haven't already. Miss Church did a lot of research and connected all the dots where the people who we just mentioned, how they tied their work to Alternative 3. And again, therefore, as we said, it discredits what they've come out and said. And she interviewed Leslie Watkins. And again, he says it's a fictional book, though he did admit to trying to get people to believe it in the hopes to sell more copies of the book.
Yeah.
Which can you blame a guy?
So, well, there you go. And that, again, adds fuel to the fire of all these people that want to believe when you have the author that was doing interviews maybe at the time when he's talking to friends, coworkers, whatever. Mm-hmm. And he's saying, oh, yeah, it was real. It's real. Like, okay. So, again, like you said, can't blame the guy who wants to sell more books, whatever. Yeah. But again, it's fanning the flames. It's making this conspiracy burn brighter and hotter and giving it validity But the guy, I mean, yeah, like you were saying in that documentary, which you can find on YouTube, and I'll put a link in the episode notes as well. He's interviewed. He pretty charming guy. It was kind of hard to understand some of the words he was saying because of the accent.
Yeah.
But charming guy, thought it was hilarious, and yeah, says it's nonsense. It's fake. It's fiction.
In her documentary when she's speaking with him, who was it? Wasn't one of the guys you mentioned saying how he knows Leslie and like they're friends? And Leslie's like, I've never heard of him.
No, it was somebody was saying that the astronaut that was in the show, Bob Groden, was a friend of Leslie Watkins.
Okay, that's
and it's like, and Leslie Watkins is like, no, my friend, no, I've never heard of the man. and how could he? He's a fictional character.
Yeah.
It's not his friend. It's like, what?
But it just goes to show how people try to create these fictional links to add validity to their story. And again, is it a game of telephone where you get this creation and somebody thinks something and they share what they heard or what they read, and then people take it and then they misinterpret a little or they add or embellish to it? And it just kind of keeps getting like this snowball, getting bigger and bigger, going downhill of mistruths and misconceptions. I don't know.
There's all kinds of stories and all types of people that just try their best and try their damnedest to say, oh, it was real. It was real. This whole thing was real. Yeah, it was presented as a work of fiction, but it was real.
Well, and
it was totally real.
That's the thing, because there's kind of, I look at it like there's 3 points where we can go. We can say it was all bullshit. So any claims where anyone mentions Alternative 3, the policy committee, anything that stemmed from the movie or the book, it's all bullshit. Or there's the aspect where you're going to have people who just, they cannot admit that they've been fooled. It's too painful. It's too big of a pill to swallow.
You cannot, and especially, I'm sorry to cut you off, especially like a conspiracy theorist who thinks they know the truth, those are the easiest people to fool. Think about it. Yeah. I know the truth. I know more than you. You know, that's the mindset of a lot of conspiracy theorists.
If you're in that mindset, you're believing it, and if you find out that it's fake, what are you going to say? So you can say, well, it's true, actually, I'm right. It's just the government, like that was all real, but the government wouldn't let them air that as is, saying it was real. So they had to put it in a way to look like it was fake, even though it was really real.
Yeah, that falls into, again, the conspiracy theorists that tell you, well, they have to, they have to tell you what they're doing. They have to. It's karmic. They have to tell you and let you know, and it's up to you whether or not you're going to believe it or go along with it.
And then you have the other group of people who they're going to say that, yes, they made this up as a work of fiction, but they actually got a lot correct on it. They didn't realize they were spilling secrets that were unknown to anyone but me and my friends, you know? Like, it's really true. My inside sources said it's true, and they just stumbled upon this creative idea that was really true. Yeah. Again, another way to dig yourself out of, oh, I fell for this bullshit.
I fell for it.
And I made money off of people, or I had people listen to me.
Now, here's the thing. Is it possible that you went through 3 things, 3 truths, right?
Yeah.
Is it possible that all 3 of those, there could be something to all of them?
It's anything is possible.
Right?
And like we call it, these truths, because what is truth, right? My truth and your truth could be totally different things. It's all about our perspectives and what we've been through. So it's tough to say, like, what's really true? We don't know. We absolutely don't know. And I've always said, go with your gut. Go with what feels right for you. That's all you can do. But some of these people, they're so good at misleading. They're so good at getting you to believe. It's like they really believe it. It's, how do you fail a lie detector test, a polygraph machine? You believe what you're saying.
How do you fail it?
Yeah, how do you pass it? How do you fail it?
Fool it.
How do you fool it? Thank you. How do you fool a polygraph machine? You believe it. And I think there are a lot of people out there who really believe what they're saying. And they do get this ego built up. But they don't want to be wrong. But I don't know what's really true. So maybe that is their truth. They've done it so much they believe it. And that's become their truth.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's, I mean, me personally, I feel it's the first one. It's all bullshit. They tell you it's all bullshit. Mm-hmm. But could it be that some of the things that they talked about maybe were not exactly, but could it be that some stuff was going on? Is there a secret space program? I don't know.
Is there secret bases on the moon?
If there, I'm going to put it like this. If there was a secret space program, as so many conspiracy theorists out there claim, and so many people that have written books, that have YouTube shows, that make podcast appearances, do convention presentations, all that kind of stuff. If there is a secret space program, do you really think that they would allow these people to spill so much information? And have you ever noticed, anybody listening, if you have ever watched any of this stuff or read about any of this stuff or follow this stuff, why is it that everybody somehow, these people that are presenting these information, the David Wilcocks of the world, if you will, why is it that their sources are always, quote, secret insiders?
Mm-hmm.
What? What is that? How does nobody find that fishy?
I have another thought. All this stuff, alternative 3, these conspiracy theories, all these ideas and things saying that it's all real, then what you're saying is, well, then you believe we actually landed on the moon, which is arguable. We've talked about it before. Can we even get to the moon? What is the moon? We talked about one of our first few episodes, bases on the moon. Is it real? Is the moon real? All these different thoughts and theories about the moon. So going on all this, you're saying, oh yeah, we've been to the moon before. Many times, going back as far as the, 60s, early 60s at least. And we've been to Mars.
Most of the folks that will peddle this secret space program stuff, they all feel that the Apollo missions, those were fake, but we actually went to the moon. Most of the people that spout this stuff, that's what they'll say. Now, me personally, I've always been the moon thing was bullshit. It's bullshit. We never, no fucking way. Now, what we were presented absolutely was bullshit. There's no way that was real. No way. There's just no way. And it's already, so many different people have done videos on it. I'm not even going to get into, we did a show about it.
We did.
Not going to get into it.
But even Mars, people have shown the photos from Mars are from a place in Arizona.
Yeah.
They matched up the photos with actual
Yes.
places on Earth.
Yes.
And how they kind of doctored and changed it. It's no, see, I have an exact identical photo from, I think it was Arizona.
Yes.
But again, it's, I don't trust NASA, first of all. That's just me speaking out. My personal opinion. I don't trust them.
Space agency.
Mm-mm.
Getting back to this thing too, the other thing that's great, talking about how people want to believe it. They want to believe it. The gentleman, the director of the movie, he says himself that the final shot, the Mars landing, was the creature in the dirt that you see was his finger just underneath some dirt and moving along and looking like it's burrowing. That's how he shot that. That's what it was. It was his finger in the dirt. Now, I heard a conspiracy theorist on a podcast recently talking about this very subject, talking about alternative 3 and how it's real and this and that, and just going into it. And this guy claims that he reached out to the director and spoke to an assistant of his or whatever. And the assistant said he doesn't want to talk about alternative 3. He's not talking to any of you conspiracy kooks or any of that. And so this conspiracy theorist, who I'm not going to name, said to him that he actually has a technical question about the film, because he knew that if he asked the question like that the director would be more likely to answer. He's not going to answer talking about Alternative 3. He's just going to answer about a shot that he filmed. So he asked him, how did you shoot that final technical sequence with your finger in the dirt and the rover like landing and all this stuff? And so the director responded, told him how he did it. And this conspiracy theorist says that he took the director's answer and went back to a bunch of his friends that are filmmakers in Hollywood, supposedly. And they all said, that makes no sense. There's no way technically that you would shoot something like that. That makes no sense. There's no way. So that guy now takes that response from these supposed Hollywood friends of his and says, well, that right there proves that was not the director. That was actual footage from Mars. And I'm just like, what? How do you come to that conclusion from that?
How
Like,
old
what
are these Hollywood friends? Because did they ever have to use practical effects?
Well, that's the thing that's the other thing
that's
too.
the
It's
kind
like
of stuff that they
it's
did
like,
back
dude,
then for
this
these
was
movies.
in the 70s.
Yeah.
You're talking to people today.
Yeah.
Of course, today you wouldn't go through all this stuff this guy did then,
Mm-hmm.
because today you just pop in a bunch of stuff on your computer and then there you go. Like, what are you talking about?
That is the exact kind of practical effect that people did when they made movies to give the illusion of something.
Exactly.
You're not really going to have a person. It's all about that perspective. They did it in movies where they'll have these little models, these small figurines, and to make it look like something's really going on, and it's not. It's called practical effects. So that's why I question, how old are these
movie
people?
magic. Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like, okay, but this is the kind of stuff that people run with.
Yeah.
They'll justify because, like you said before, they want to believe.
Yeah.
And that's where this stuff gets scary, because what else are people out there saying and spouting that they want to believe? And how far are they going to go in their own minds to rationalize that belief? What are they willing to do? What are they willing to accept? Because they want to believe so badly.
And that's where it gets dangerous.
Exactly.
Because it's great to be open to ideas and concepts and different ways of thinking, but you also have to educate yourself. And when something proves to be false, but you can't let go of that as your truth because you've held on to it for so long and so tightly, that's dangerous, because now you're being ignorant. You're and not even in a way where it's like you can say, oh, I didn't know, because you find out, okay, this was all fake. So what do? I can swallow that pill and I can move forward and start learning more about other things. What else was I wrong about? And grow from it. Or you can cling on to your truth and you can refuse to let go of it and then make up excuses. Because it's so funny how humans are, where if they don't want to accept information that goes against their thoughts, their beliefs, they make up excuses. Like that guy. I spoke to my friends in Hollywood and there's no way. That's like, covering your eyes and your ears because you don't want to take anything else in. How are you going to grow as a human and develop? You're not. You're going to be stuck in the same place as everyone else is moving on.
Yeah.
That's my own personal opinion.
Yeah.
But it's just crazy to me, because think about when we first started this show. Next month is going to be what, 5 years or 6 5 years that we've been doing this podcast. And in those 5 years, our ways of thinking have changed in many different ways on many different topics. As we learn information, as we discover new things, as we learn things are fake, we can say, whoa, we were lied to, or whoa, we didn't think about that aspect, and now we're thinking differently on this, because we're open enough. We want to learn. We want to find out, okay, what makes sense, what doesn't. And we do our own research, especially nowadays. Like, there's no reason. Back in the late 70s when Alternative 3 came out, it wasn't as easy. And again, there's a lot of crap, a lot of bull out there that's just totally wrong, because anyone can make a website. Anyone can put information out on a website. But you really have to dig to do your own research and find out what is more realistic, what makes sense. And again, at the end of the day, going with your gut, what feels right to you. But you can't be so inflexible that when evidence shows that something was false, to say no and make up reasons why you're saying they're lying. The people who made it are lying.
You got to love that.
Yeah.
You got to love that. So I thought it'd be fun to, we haven't done this in a while, but go on to IMDb.
Ooh, reviews.
And read some of the reviews because some of them, some have some pretty interesting stories here. And again, will illustrate exactly how some people can get taken in by something like this. So there's a number of them. You can check them out yourself. I'm just going to do a couple here. So here's an 8 out of 10 star review titled "I Was Caught Out" by Theo Robertson from the 3rd of July, 2002. I watched this aged 10 and was compelled by the subject matter. Scientists disappearing across the world, an Apollo mission astronaut losing his temper while being asked questions as to what he saw on a moon mission, and most disturbing of all, secret NASA footage from Mars, showing something alive burrowing just under the surface of the red planet. An absolutely shocking investigation. It wasn't until a few days later that I found out it was an April Fool. I didn't feel stupid about getting fooled. After all, I was only a child, but I did feel very angry that there was no proof of life on Mars. Just think, though, there must still be literally thousands of people walking around today who still believe this was a real investigative report. That was in 2002. Now think about all the stuff that's come out, all the information, all these stories that have come out since 2002 when this person wrote this.
Yeah.
Here's another one. This one does not have any star rating, but it's titled "Here's a Letter from the Author" by Major Movie Star on the 1st of February, 2006. So this guy got a copy of a letter from the author, from Leslie Watkins. The film is associated with a book by a guy called Leslie Watkins. It was all meant as a hoax, but Watkins later decided that maybe he had accidentally hit on something. He published the following letter to the editor of Windwards magazine in response to certain questions from her. So here's his letter. "Dear Miss Dittrich, thank you for your letter, which reached me today. Naturally, I am delighted by your interest in Alternative 3 and by the fact that you plan to sell it in the Windwards bookstore. I will certainly cooperate in any way I can. The correct description of Alternative 3 was given to you by the representative from Penguin Books. The book is based on fact, but uses that fact as a launchpad for a," and this is in all caps, "high dive into fiction. In answer to your specific questions, 1. There is no astronaut named Grodin. 2. There is no Scepter television, and the reported Benson is also fictional. 3. There is no Dr. Gerstein. 4. Yes, a, quote, documentary, end quote, was televised in June 1977 on Anglia Television, which went out to the entire national network in Britain. It was called Alternative 3 and was written by David Ambrose and produced by Christopher Miles, whose names were on the book for contractual reasons. This original TV version, which I expanded immensely for the book, was actually a hoax," he puts that in all caps, "which had been scheduled for transmission on April Fool's Day. Because of certain problems in finding the right network slot, the transmission was delayed. The TV program did cause a tremendous uproar because viewers refused to believe it was fiction. I initially took the view that the basic premise was so way out, particularly the way I aimed to present it in the book, that no one could regard it as nonfiction. Immediately after publication, I realized I was totally wrong. In fact, the amazing mountains of letters from virtually all parts of the world, including vast numbers from highly intelligent people in positions of responsibility, convinced me that I had, all caps, accidentally trespassed into a range of top secret truths. Documentary evidence provided by many of these correspondents decided me to write a serious and, all caps, completely nonfiction sequel. Unfortunately, a chest containing the bulk of the letters was among the items which were mysteriously lost in transit some 4 years ago when I moved from London, England to Sydney, Australia, before I moved on to settle in New Zealand. For some time after Alternative 3 was originally published, I have reason to suppose that my home telephone was being tapped, and my contacts who were experienced in such matters were convinced that certain intelligence agencies considered that I probably knew too much. So, summing up, the book is, again, all caps, fiction based on fact. But I now feel that I inadvertently got very close to a secret truth. I hope this is of some help to you, and I look forward to hearing from you again. With best wishes, Leslie Watkins. And then the review concludes with, so that's what Leslie Watkins says. How extraordinary now that global warming transpires to be real and may well destroy the world. I hope I won't be around to witness it.
So I listening to that, I wanted to bring up two things. One, we kind of said it before, but the book, Alternative 3 by Leslie Watkins, it says right in there, it's science fiction. Keyword fiction. So
Yes.
people read it. And with that letter, he's saying, yes, it's fake. And it's so interesting because he goes on to talk about the letters and everything and how he was going to write a book. And I can't, but it makes you wonder, is that a worker working? You know,
It's totally him working.
Yeah, because
You could tell just everything in there.
Exactly,
He's
but
totally
that's what he
working.
did because he wants people to buy the book.
Yes.
He wants people to be hooked. And he even said in that documentary that we mentioned.
That we watched out, yeah.
Yeah, he even said because if people knew it was fake, nobody would buy it. It wouldn't be interesting.
What's interesting is that he wrote it. He's in the letter we just read here. He wrote it in such an over-the-top way that because he thought, well, no one's going to believe this is real, and the opposite happened.
Yeah.
Which is pretty incredible. Here's another one. Here's a 10 out of 10 review. Alternative 3, My Experiences by Excalibur 1308. This is also from 2006 in February. I well remember the alleged science report of June 1977 about disappearing scientists and secret bases on the moon. At a UFO conference in a London hotel, August 1979, I met and had a chat with J. Allen Hynek. Someone told me that the people who made that episode, Alternative 3, had a lot of trouble now finding work. Almost blacklisted? Then a friend whose father was a senior engineer for the Royal Navy was asked by my friend about Alternative 3. I was reading the Grenada paperback at the time. Sadly, it was poorly written. My friend's father hit the ceiling and shouted, "It's not that number anyway." Okay, whatever that means. Back in the early 1980s when La Thatcher, I assume he's speaking about Margaret Thatcher, the prime minister at the time, was in charge, there was a girl in my local pub who bore a marked resemblance to Lady T. I used to pull her leg about it as she pulled the pints. Chatting to her one day, it transpired that she worked in a financial library in her daytime job. She was complaining about the snooty attitude of the highly qualified degree people who worked there. Anyway, we somehow got chatting about Alternative 3. She said Alternative 3 sent a shudder right around the financial community. Whilst it was not completely true, it closely paralleled the real thing. I shouldn't be telling you this because I have signed secrecy papers. This is what she's saying to him.
I shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm going to anyway.
Yeah. And then he ends the review with interesting with a question mark.
Anytime somebody says, you know, I shouldn't be saying this, it makes me think, then don't.
Yeah. A couple others here. There's a 7 out of 10, and then we can stop with the reviews. Popularized in America when unknown. This was from September 12th of 2009. Misa Like You is the name of the person who wrote this review. This Brit TV movie got a lot of underground hype in the States when it was hilariously referenced in the movie Slacker. Character actor Jerry Deloney as the UFO conspiracy nut catches the Alternative 3 on late-night Austin TV and believes every word of it. It's slow going and obviously a movie and not a documentary. I guess some people must have been pretty naive back then, but at least you can check it out online for free and it is definitely worth a watch. Highly recommended to all conspiracy fans. In fact, you ought to watch it as a double feature with Capricorn 1, if for nothing else than just to keep the 70s vibes going. They don't make them like this anymore. In fact, they only did in that awesome, wild, and woolly early to mid-'70s era. There you go.
And I just want to throw out there, Capricorn 1. That's a great movie, and we did an episode on it. Kind of,
Yes.
I think, earlier episodes. I forget which
and
number.
again, that Capricorn 1, that was all about basically how you could fake a moon landing.
Yeah.
They basically faked a mission to Mars.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of pretty interesting.
If you haven't watched the movie,
It definitely
and this
check
is
it
interesting
out.
you, check it
Yeah,
out.
definitely
And
check
then
it out.
listen to our episode about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's some IMDb reviews again. People go check those out. And I'm gonna put the actual link for Alternative 3. You can see it on YouTube. It's free. You can see it right there. Check it out. It's what, about 55 minutes long, I think. It's a little less than an hour. Yeah, it's about an hour. But yeah, that's Alternative 3. But it has, again, it took on a life of its own. And again, could there be some truth in it? Yeah. The climate change stuff. Yeah, the climate's changing. It always changes. That, of course. So where Leslie Watkins was saying that it's science fiction based on fact, yeah, is that the fact he's talking about? Because he never says what facts it's based on. That's how a lot of these movies, based on a true story, inspired by true events, all this kind of stuff. It's like the smallest little thing that gets embellished after, it's anyway.
You know, it'd be funny if he's like, well, some of it, is true, meaning like what you had just said, not the actual moon landing.
Not the moon land, not the Mars road, none of that. None of that stuff's real. Not these scientists going off to Mars. But the other thing about this too, if we just go back based on the premise of the whole thing, right? And the whole conspiracy. Talking about the why it's called Alternative 3, the first two alternatives, and then so these first two things you try if you're trying to save the world or whatever the premise is here. The most realistic option is colonizing another planet. That's more that's the most attainable one. That's the one you're gonna go for. Not we'll just build underground or we'll try to limit pollution. No, none of that.
Not like we're going to try to get our shit together.
Forget that. We're just going to leave. We're going to just go to Mars.
We're going to go fuck up Mars over there.
That's the other part of this whole thing that so many people I feel don't even think about. We're not going to do anything that we actually can do. We're going to just go. We're leaving. We're out. See ya.
And it's
peace.
funny.
I'll see you on Mars.
How many movies romanticize that thought, that idea of life on Mars? And what is the theme? It's always the Earth is not going to last. Here's my thought. The Earth will last. We might not.
Yeah, we may not.
Will.
I mean, geez, we just did the Adam and Eve story. If there's a cataclysmic event coming, why is that going to happen? Because we've just messed up too much here. So again, rather than focus on stuff that you actually can do, we don't. We're just gonna leave. That's so again, the conspiracy theorists just believe this.
And I'm not even going to
blindly.
get into about like the pollution and who causes the majority of pollution in the oceans and the air.
No, I'm
not going to get into that. But it's kind of like, again, just trying to make it like everything's our fault. It's all us, not these big corporations, not the government, nothing else. It's us and it's on us. And if we're lucky, they'll save us, kind of BS. But it's like that romanticized of the Earth. We're not going to make it on here. We need to find a new place. Here's the thought. Let's all get our shit together. Let's try to be more self-sufficient. That's my own personal thought.
All right.
Then we won't need to go to Mars.
But yeah, that was always my big thing. Like, come on.
I just got get your ass to Mars in my head from Total Recall.
Yes.
My horrible Arnold impersonation.
That was a terrible Arnold.
So bad. I can't do Arnold.
Do you have anything else you want to add about Alternative 3? Any other closing thoughts?
It's a fun movie. Like, going in, knowing what we know, it's fun. And I really recommend that documentary by Mary Louise Church, because that was really, it's like, what, 2.5 hours long?
It's about 2.5 hours long. It goes by pretty quickly, though. And again, if you're somebody who is into conspiracy stuff, not necessarily believe it, but just are interested in it or know about any of the names that we mentioned, she talks about all of them. So any other final thoughts?
No. Any thoughts for you?
No, just it was pretty, not infuriating, but it was just kind of almost like, oh, wow. Okay. It was almost a relief in a way that now I know for sure any doubt or question I had in my mind about any of the stuff that I looked into or whatever. It's like, now I know for sure. Okay. This all was definitely bullshit now. There's no way any of this stuff would be true because it's all built on a lie. If you're building anything on a lie, well, then everything else is a lie, in my opinion. You can't there's not going to be any truth built off of a lie.
And what's,
you can build off of a truth and lie after the fact and have a foundation of truth to add validity to your lie. But if you're building on a lie and that's where you're starting from,
but what if we said before? The people will put truths out there with lies because, oh, well, that's true and that's true. The two truths and a lie. That's true and that's true. So that other thing must be true.
Well, that's what I said. You can build off of a truth with lies, but you can't. Anyway, moving on. So no, that's it. I felt relieved that now I can just put all that stuff away. Like, okay, it's all bullshit. It's entertaining. It's fun if you want to kill some time and listen to a fun story, but to give it any relevance, any real estate in your mind as something that's fact based, it's like no. The only truth, we talked about this earlier today. The only truth is what's going on in your world, in your home, in your backyard. That's your truth. That's your reality. That's all that really affects you, in my view. I don't want to lecture anybody, but that's just how I feel about things.
Yeah.
On that note, I am the Golden Greek, Alex Arion, joined as always by my beautiful, lovely, gorgeous wife. I'm going to say it again, the lovely Monique.
And you've been listening to the Homewrecker podcast.
We love hearing from and interacting with our hearers and watchers. Feel free to reach out to us on Twitter
@HomewreckerPod.
You can also visit our website,
homewreckerpodcast.com,
where you can check out past episodes and pick up some Homewrecker podcast gear from our online store.
Also, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you're hearing or watching our show. That way you can be notified whenever a new episode drops. We're on all major podcasting platforms, and you can check out the video versions of our show at YouTube and Brighteon.
You can also find Monique in a few places online as well.
I'm on Twitter @_MoniqueGiselle_. If you're interested in a tarot reading, organite, incense, candles, and other cool things, you can go to my website, tarotbymonique.com. Or if you're interested in hypnotherapy, you can go to innerstandingshypnosis.com to schedule a free 20-minute consult. And follow me on Twitter @MoniquePCHT. And Alex, how can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter @TheAlexArion, and you can check out my website, AlexArionFitness.com.
And if that's too much to remember, we get it. That's why we put it all in our show notes.
Thanks for spending your time with us, and we appreciate all of your support.
We do. Thank you. We love you. Many people are unaware just how much hypnotherapy can help them, or think it's only to help lose weight or quit smoking. But there is so much more hypnotherapy can do. It can help with stress, anxiety, insomnia, phobias, performance enhancement, connecting with your spirit guides and higher self. You can even discover past lives and your life between lives. Heal traumas, break habits, find your deepest truth, or just have fun discovering who you really are, all from the comfort of your home. I'm Monique Pliakis. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and I want to help you. Schedule a free consult by going to www.innerstandingshypnosis.com. That's INNERSTANDINGSHYPNOSIS.com. Inner Standings Hypnosis. Find your power and ignite your inner light.